a pleasure to evaluate your speech, and it's nice to talk to you earlier in the week about your goals for the speech. Doug is today's the day of advanced manuals. He is also beyond the standard manual, and he's working from the Humorously Speaking manual. In particular, number 5, and the whole speech is intended to be humorous. It's a progression from earlier speeches where you work in some humor to emphasize the point you might be making. The real goal of this one is to sink your teeth in and make the whole presentation humorous. So it's nice. Hopefully I get the chance to sink my teeth into it, not just scratch the surface and really help try to draw out some humor. Doug was wanting to know his confidence, maintain a good pace, and use good voice fluctuations. These are all good elements that we want to include in all of our speeches anyway, and it's kind of like we need to magnify them for the motivation of this speech in particular. And instead of, I guess, maybe a steady pace, the book emphasizes more of a mindful pace. You did that when you had a nice little pause as you collected your thoughts, and you used it well where you said, a house, go to the other side, pause, a house divided. So utilizing more of those pauses and not necessarily a steady pace, because you actually did have a pretty steady pace throughout, but it's more varying it to add emphasis as you go along the way is where I would encourage. You'll probably find that if you go back and watch the video, some of your crutch words tend to be correct or right, which are kind of unique crutch words, and is kind of getting acknowledgement from the audience, which actually could be used effectively in a humorous environment where you're trying to engage with your audience. So, and you're making a relatable point, like daughters are so difficult to make a decision with, right? And like get some engagement with, rather than just like falling back on the words, use them as an advantage. And then the main goal of crafting the speech in the manual was focusing on elements of exaggeration. And so I would have liked to see a little bit more of that in your speech writing and your planning, to where it was a good recounting of what it goes into picking a movie with your kids, but maybe like, oh, we're struggling, we're scrolling through Rotten Tomatoes, I swear we're spending more time looking at reviews and trailers than watching the dang movie. Or like, just really emphasize and exaggerate the points. Even if they're not believable, it's a knowingness to the audience. Yes, it's not true, you don't actually spend more time, but it makes it more relatable and more believable. But, oh, and then one last thing, where it probably feels like the end of it kind of crashed and burned a little bit as you reference the cards, but actually the whole goal was humorous speaking, and you really engage the audience in that moment. So I wouldn't normally recommend it for a normal speech, but for the motivation of this, I thought you actually did a great job engaging everyone. So, good job.